So, picture this. Your mom is 72. She's sharp, she's funny, she still beats everyone at cards. But lately, she skipped her friend's birthday dinner, said she just was tired. And last week, she almost fell getting out of the bathtub, and she laughed it off like it was nothing. And you're sitting there thinking, do I say something? Do I bring it up? How do I even start this conversation? I hear these questions from my patients' daughters all the time. And I want to talk to you today, not giving you a lecture, but as your friend who also happens to be a nurse practitioner who walks into homes of elderly patients every single week. And I'm going to share with you exactly what I tell the daughters who call me crying in their cars after the visit. I'm going to walk you through some habits that sound ordinary, maybe even obvious, but I promise you, the way most families are actually living, these things are quietly missing. And I need you to stay with me till the end because I saved the most important one for the last. It is a situation so many elderly people fall into completely by default. Nobody plans it, nobody notices it happening, and it leads to real medical diagnosis. And by the time family realizes that what's going on, it's already done significant damage. The people who are still sharp, still mobile, still loving their lives at 85, they made some very quiet, very deliberate decisions starting around 60 plus. And most of them never made a big deal out of it. That's the actual secret. So the first thing, and this is one that makes me want to shake people, is movement. Not exercise, not a gym membership, not a fitness journey, movement. Here's what happens to our bodies as we age that nobody really explains clearly. We lose muscle. Naturally, it's called sarcopenia, and it starts in your 40s and just keeps going. By the time someone is in their 70s, if they haven't been intentional about staying active, they can lose so much muscle strength that getting up from a chair becomes a real effort. And that's when things get dangerous, because weakness leads to falls. And falls, my loves, are one of the leading causes of serious injury and loss of independence in older adults. So when I'm in someone's home and I see a parent who's resting most of the day, I'm not thinking cozy. I'm thinking clock is ticking. Now, here's how I want you to bring this up with your mom or your dad. Not like, Mom, I really need you to start exercising. You're losing muscle mass. Nobody wants to hear that. And you'll be lucky if she doesn't throw a pillow at you. Try this instead. Mom, I was reading something the other day. Apparently, people who just walk around the block a few times a day stay way more independent in their 80s than people who don't. Can we just take a walk after dinner tonight? Make it normal. You make it hers. You're not assigning her homework. You are inviting her into a lifestyle. And if she's resistant, because some of our parents are, you can also try sneaky approach, which I fully endorse. Help her find movement that doesn't feel like a movement. Does she like to garden? Beautiful. Does she like dancing? Put on her music. Does she have a dog? Or could you get her a dog? Walking a dog is exercise nobody argues about. The goal is movement has to become part of daily life, not a special project, because special projects end and habits don't. Okay, the second thing, and this one I feel deeply about because I see what happens when people skip it, regular checkups, specifically for hearing, sleep, and balance. I know. She sees a doctor. Sure. But is anyone actually screening her hearing? Asking about sleep quality? Testing her balance? Because here's what I've watched happen over and over in my patients' homes. Hearing loss that goes untreated because it requires a visit to an audiologist is now linked to significantly higher rates of cognitive decline and dementia. When the brain stops receiving full auditory input, it works harder, it gets fatigued, and over time, it starts to shrink in the areas responsible for memory and thinking. A hearing loss caught early changes everything. You are managing something much more difficult. Your parent says she doesn't sleep well. Never did. But has anyone actually evaluated that? Because disrupted sleep in older adults isn't just tiring. It raises inflammation, weakens the immune system, impairs memory, and it's connected to falls, mood changes, and early cognitive symptoms. Poor sleep could be related to sleep apnea, but your parent needs to see a sleeping specialist to be evaluated for it. Balance is so simple and so ignored. A 5-minute balance test at a primary care visit can identify someone who is at high risk for fall before the fall happens. But most visits don't include it unless someone asks. Ask. So your job as a daughter is to be someone who says, "Mom, I want to come to your next appointment, not to take over, just to be there. And I want to ask the doctor about your hearing and your sleep, because I've been reading that catching those things early makes a huge difference." You're not being bossy. You're being her advocate. And there's a difference. And she might actually be relieved that someone's paying attention. If you're finding this helpful, and I really hope you are, this is exactly the kind of conversations we have every week on this channel. I make videos for daughters like you who are figuring out how to show up for a parent they love without losing themselves in the process. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you have a girlfriend who needs to hear this today, send it to her. She'll thank you. Okay, back to your mom. Staying curious, learning new things, keeping the brain working. Here's what we know about the aging brain. It's not fixed. It has plasticity. It can grow new connections, adapt, respond to stimulation, but only if you give it something to work with. When people stop learning, when every day is the same routine, the same TV shows, the same conversations, the brain gets less stimulation, and that affects cognitive health over time. But when someone picks up a new hobby, learns a new skill, takes a class, does something that makes them think, that's protective. That's actually preventive medicine. And I'm not talking about brain training apps. Though sure, they're fine. I'm talking about things that feel alive. Watercolor painting, learning to use iPad, growing tomatoes from the seed for the first time, taking a memoir writing class at the library, join a choir, going to a lecture series, starting a podcast. Okay, that might be ambitious, but I've had my patients do wilder things. The point is, novelty is nourishment for the brain. So when you're talking to your parent about this, try, "Mom, is there anything you always wanted to try but never had time for?" Because now you actually have time. Reframe the season. This isn't the end of things. This is a chapter where she finally gets to be curious for herself. And now I want to talk about something that I think gets the least attention and does the most damage: loneliness. I walk into homes every week where an elderly person is technically fine, medically stable, no acute crisis, but they haven't had a real conversation with another person in days, sometimes longer. And I can feel it in the room. There's a kind of quiet that isn't peaceful. It's hollow. And we've known for a while that loneliness is really bad for mental health. But what people don't realize is that it's also physically dangerous. Studies have shown that chronic loneliness raises the risk of heart disease, stroke, and dementia. One major analysis found that social isolation has an effect on mortality comparing to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It accelerates cognitive decline, it worsens depression, it weakens the immune system, and it's a cycle. The lonelier someone gets, the less they want to go out, the harder it becomes to connect, and they retreat even further. So when your dad says he's fine staying home, that he doesn't feel like he wants to go to senior center, that his friends are all gone, I want you to take that seriously. Not with panic, but with attention. And here's what you can do. First, help him to find his people. This doesn't have to be a senior center if he hates the idea of a senior center. It can be a church group, a book club, a walking group, a volunteer position. It can be an adult daycare program, which I have to say are widely underutilized and actually wonderful. They offer structure, social engagement, meals, and activities. And for a parent who lives alone, the 1 day a week can be life-changing. Volunteer work is another option I love because it gives a person a purpose, not just companionship. And a purpose? Purpose keeps people alive. And I mean that literally. If your mom won't go out, bring people to her. A weekly FaceTime with grandkids, a neighbor who stops by, a faith community that does home visits. You can't force connection, but you can plant seeds and water them. And sometimes you have to be annoyingly persistent because isolated people often resist the very thing they need most. And this is the part I really want you to hold on to. Everything I've talked about today, the movement, the checkups, the connection, the curiosity, none of it works if it stays in the category of things we should do. Healthy aging is not built on motivation. It's built on habits. Motivation is beautiful, but it's also unreliable. It comes and goes. It depends on the mood, energy, and circumstances. And here's the truth about our aging parents. There are going to be days, and a lot of them, when they don't feel inspired. When it's cold and they don't want to walk. When they're tired and they'd rather skip the group meeting. When grief is present and the world feels small. And those are exactly the days that matter most. What separates the people who are thriving at 85 from the people who aren't? It's not that they felt more motivated. It's that they kept going without motivation. They walked because it was Tuesday, and Tuesday is a walking day. They went to the group because they said they would. They called their friend because they always do that on Sundays. Small, consistent steps. And your role as a daughter isn't to be her motivational speaker. It's to help her build the structure that carries her when the motivation is just not there. Help her set the walk time, put the appointment in the calendar, make the plan for Sunday dinner. Be the accountability she didn't know she needed. Because you showing up consistently, and that's also a message. It says you are worth the effort. Your health matters. Your independence matters. Your life matters. And she needs to hear that from you. I know this is a lot to think about. And I know some of you are already in the thick of it. Already watching your parents slowing down. Already worried. Already trying to figure out how to help without pushing them away. If there is one thing I want you to take from today, is that the best time to have these conversations is before things get hard, before the fall, before the isolation sets in, before the hearing loss becomes a wall between you. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start. And if this helped you today, I'd love to know what landed. Leave a comment and tell me what is the hardest part of this conversation for you. Because next week, I'm going to talk about how actually get a resistant parent to listen without it turning into a fight. You want to see that one. Take care of yourself and take care of each other.